Welcome to Traveling on Everyday Spends weekly report for July 25th. I want to first thank to everyone that is watching and listening to the show. We have a wide variety of news to cover tonight, so let's get right to the agenda. So, as far as our agenda, we've got the July credit card intro bonus offers we're going to take a look at, July transfer bonuses, as well as July points and miles opportunities. And lastly, the July targeted offers. Then we're going to do a recap on the special announcements that I did last week. Then we're going to take a look at the Air Canada, Aeroplan, and Eurowings partnership and see how that may benefit us, as well as we're going to look at Qatar and their new Q suites, their new next gen Q suites that are forthcoming. Then we have a number of items on Hyatt. So we're going to start with Hyatt in the Standard Hotel, Park Hyatt at Los Cabos, Park Hyatt at Johannesburg, and then we're going to move to the redeeming of Flying Blue Miles with El Al, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And then we're going to take a look at the Alaska Lounge, their new one in the San Francisco location in Terminal 1. We'll then take a look at, go back to Hyatt and look at Hyatt and its partnership with Under Canvas. Then we're going to talk about, are we really looking at a new Southwest Airlines that I'm kind of excited for? Then we'll take a look at, of course, the American Express Gold Card and the changes you need to know. That's obviously the hot topic for the last few days. And then, is there a Bilt card related to tuition? Not Bilt itself, but another type of credit card that we need to take a look at. So those are our topics for the agenda today. And I want to say welcome to Mr. Coho. Yes, red number one. And then to John, thank you so much for stopping through. Really appreciate it. And let's move right into the information. So as far as the credit card offers that are going to be ending soon that we need to look at, we still have the Hilton Honors, the Hilton credit cards for American Express through July 31st. So that time is fast approaching. If you are, whether you're a Hilton loyalist or someone that might be just wanting to kick the tires on Hilton, there may be a card for you if it fits within your scheme. We'll have the Hilton Honors card, which is kind of the starter one with only a $2,000 spend in the first 6 months, but you do get a free night and 70,000 points. The Hilton Surpass, which is the middle tier with 130,000 points and a free night certificate with $3,000 worth of spend. And then, of course, the Hilton Aspire that everyone knows about with 175,000 points and on $6,000 worth of spend in the first 6 months. Also note, as far as the American Express Gold, we'll talk about that a bit later. And the points will be a bit different based upon that. And then the American Express Platinum, all over the place of being able to see numbers. So definitely, as I always say, take a look, not just in your regular browser, but be sure to look at your incognito or your in private. Then we have the Capital One Venture, which we discussed last week with the 75,000 miles it normally has, but they have added a $250 Capital One travel credit for the same $4,000 worth of spend in the first 3 months. Chase, I will continue to repeat about Freedom Flex. Chase normally does not have too much changes if you look at incognito. For some reason, Freedom Flex continuously has different numbers for its grocery percentage versus its overall cash back that they're doing on it. So feel free to continue to look at that. We have the Marriott Bonvoy Bold with its best offer ever. We have the IHG1 Rewards Premier Credit Card with its best offer ever at 5 free nights at 60,000 points per night up to for that $4,000 worth of spend in the first 3 months. I've got a video coming out on that this weekend just to walk people through it, and one that you might be kind of interested in as far as where I rank that card compared to a lot of other cards, including the Hilton Aspire. Then Chase, we still have the Southwest business cards at up to 120,000 miles on each of them. The United Gateway is the United cards are still available under Chase. And then the Inc. Business Preferred, which we found out about a couple of weeks ago, with 120,000 points at $8,000 worth of spend in the first 3 months. It is a business card, but don't let that intimidate you if you have an interest in it. Business cards are not something that you have to be afraid of. You don't need to have an LLC for it, and you don't even have to have a ongoing business. It can be just the vision that you have of what you are looking to be able to do going forward. And I will put a link for that video. I did talk about business credit cards previously, but those are the credit cards that we're looking at through Chase. And then, of course, the Citi Strata Premier, we still have that card at 75,000 points. And then, as I introduced last week, Wells Fargo with its Choice Privileges cards, their MasterCard as well as their Select, for potential road warriors that are really loyalists to the Choice brand. Then we'll look at the July transfer bonuses. We still have Aeroplan through July 31st through Chase. And if you have the credit card, you can also get an additional bump on that. It's up to 25,000 bonus points that you could be able to get on that. That deadline is July 31st with a 20% transfer bonus if you don't have a card and 30% if you do. And Citi, we have a couple of new ones. The Air France KLM Flying Blue for 25%. And then we have the Wyndham Rewards for 20%, both with an August 17th, 2024 date. As far as those, they're not historic, they're not groundbreaking as far as those percentages that we have for Air France and Wyndham. But if you have already plans, if you already have plans for that, to utilize Wyndham or Air France KLM, then definitely take advantage of it. Every little bit helps. Just don't feel like you need to end up getting those points and miles just because there's a sale, though. It's not something to do speculatively. And then as far as the July miles and points purchase opportunities, we've got Avianca, which has a deadline of August 31st. I'm sorry, August 15th. And the purchase goes for all the way from 120% to 150%. So you'll get 120% bonus for as little as 1,000 miles. 2,000, and if you go between 2,000 and 20,000 miles, you'll be at 140%. And then 21,000 to 40,000 miles, it's 150%. And then, I'm sorry, lastly, if you're at 41,000 miles to 200,000 miles, then you'll hit that 160%, which will then equate to about $1.27 each. There's a lot of transfer partners for Avianca. It's not, even though those numbers sound very high, these I've seen where we've had numbers roughly that high, even this year. We've had 155% this year. We've had 165% this year, as well as 170%. So this is not, the numbers can kind of catch you off guard if you're not used to keeping up with Avianca. So don't feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's definitely not that. But once again, if it fits for what you need to top off points, you can. But definitely remember, there's a lot of transfer partners that you could use for Avianca Lifemiles. So it's not one of the ones that you'll be the quickest to necessarily feel like you may need to buy. Then we still have Copa Airlines that we talked about last week that goes through July 31st. And as we talked about, based on in Panama, it's their best ever sale, but there are some different issues that you have to keep in mind in regards to it, especially as far as the search engine is not ideal. They don't have one-for-one transfer partners, and the service fees can get significant if you're doing international flights. So if you are going to be looking at a US to Panama, or you're staying within the Central America, there may be some spots for you to look at. But since it's a new one that I wasn't even aware of, it's worth taking a look at if you're looking at activity in the Central America area. And then we have Wyndham Rewards still for August 9th deadline, where we are looking at 35% bonus if you purchase 3,000 miles, 3,000 points or more. And those can be some spots to look at. And I mentioned before, Vacasa rentals are a really good redemption with Wyndham. And we do have a couple of transfer partners, Capital One and Citi. So keep that one in mind. This one on Vacations by Marriott is not a point purchase, but I wanted to make sure that I did have it up here to be able to show. So if you book and complete a minimum 4 nights vacation by December 31st of this year, 2024, then you will receive 25,000 Marriott Bonvoy points. Be sure that you must be a member and you have to book by July 31st. But there's not really any restrictions that you have to spend a certain amount, and it's not specific to any locations, but Vacations by Marriott is a package program where you're getting your airfare and the hotel put together, as we've seen with so many other airlines, especially. But you have to do that package through them to get that 25,000 points. It's a nice perk if you are already looking at a potential package vacation and it's worth looking at Marriott, but it's not one to change what you were looking at doing just to be getting that 25,000 points. So I wanted to make sure that everyone had that information. And I want to make sure to say hello to Fashion Forward. Thanks for stopping through. Really appreciate it. As far as the targeted offers that we still have the Amex Hilton business card where you can earn up to 25,000 bonus points, and that's through September 30th. So make sure of the guidelines that are related to that if you have interest and have that card, which I am one that does, but don't have any travel plans to be able to really take advantage of it. Then we have the Chase co-branded cards, which we talked about, quarterly spending offers on all of their potentially on all of their co-branded cards. I will make sure to put the link, as I did before, in the description where you can click on that and just run through all of your Chase co-branded cards and see if you do have any of those bonuses that are there. I unfortunately did not have a single one, and I've not had a single one the last few times this has happened. So maybe I'm just unlucky, but I'm definitely not getting anything from Chase. Now, as far as the Citi credit cards, that one is involving all of their Citi credit cards. The problem with this one that you have to make sure to be aware of is you have to check your email and or your snail mail. They're not having something where a link you can go to check it for yourself. And after finding out about this, I had to go through my email and my junk email. And I actually did find where my Citi Strata Premier has 5% for home improvements, stores, department stores, and one other thing. And that runs through September 30th. So make sure to take a look at it and make sure that you're not missing out on something, and dig into the mail, dig into your email if you do have Citi credit cards. As far as the special announcement, I did talk about this last week, but I wanted to touch on it just very briefly because I talked about uh, basically people sending me an email and such, and for some reason I was not thinking well enough for a Google form. So I did create a Google form. I put a link for that in the notification when I sent out for this live stream, and I'll make sure to put it in the description. It's a much easier process, and I apologize for anybody that was looking at doing the questions off of this and the email and such. But it is a very simple process. If you once you complete the form, you'll get your copy of your responses back. I'll be able to look at that questionnaire, be able to review it, make sure that I'm on the same page with you, and then I will reach out to you to bounce off any immediate questions that I may have based upon the questionnaire, and then set up a time for us to do an interview on this and to walk through your questions and some of my recommendations. And we'll get that together and I'll make sure that I'm doing that at a time that is convenient for you. And then we'll put it up as a recorded product on that. So if there's any questions in regards to it, please feel free to leave a comment or ask any questions regarding that. More than happy to. just thought that this would be a case where that be able to try to share and to give some of my time and effort to you all that have been good enough to listen to me and see if to provide some benefit and hopefully to be able to help you to be more efficient, to maximize the opportunities that you have. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that briefly. And like I said, if there's any questions or concerns, definitely let me know. So let's look at Air Canada, Aeroplan, and Eurowings. We have a partnership that has been announced. So, and that's as of today, that Air Canada Aeroplan has a partnership with Eurowings to allow Aeroplan members to redeem your points to travel on Eurowings. Now, as far as the chart, you're basically going to be using the same standard partnership chart that you use for anything else. There's no new chart related to Eurowings. And then you can view the Atlantic region that is part of that standard partnership, the standard region, because Eurowings pretty much does all of its flying in the Atlantic region to be able to get some information on what the miles cost would end up being. You'll end up having access to economy and business class for Eurowings, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. Then there are going to be no carrier imposed surcharges, which is great because a lot of times when you're going to Europe, that is where they can kill you with fuel surcharges as well as other fees. They'll just have the $39 Canadian partner booking fee that they normally have that applies. And then as far as the award flights on Eurowings, it can be done right now on aircanada.com as well as through their call center. Now, for those that aren't really aware of Eurowings, Eurowings is a subsidiary of Lufthansa, and they are considered the regional low-cost airline. And we've mentioned them when we talk about the monthly Lufthansa sales because it includes everyone in their group. But that is the niche that Lufthansa, that Eurowings fits in with Lufthansa. Now, then the interesting part of this is that they are not part of Star Alliance. So they would not normally be a way to be able to use points with Eurowings. So that's what makes this partnership somewhat interesting to look at. The interesting part also on that is they don't have hubs in Frankfurt or Munich, which is where Lufthansa's biggest hubs are at. They operate out of Berlin, Cologne, Dusseldorf, and Hamburg, just to name a few. They are considered kind of a point-to-point travel, so that's why they don't hit the main hubs. And when I mentioned that there would be economy and business availability, that's because Eurowings operates two classes of flights. One is where it's the same economy across the entire plane, and then they have a two-class layout with economy and business. So that's why there's no mention of first class or anything like that. As far as thoughts, just a couple of quick numbers. If you're traveling up to 1,000 miles, you're looking at 7,500 Aeroplan miles for economy, 15,000 points for miles for business. And then if you're between 1,001 and 2,000 miles, you're looking at 12,500 for economy, as well as 25,000 for business. Now, it's great to have another option, but be sure to check the cash price before you look at using points for Eurowings, mainly because of that niche that they fit in for being the low-cost airline. Their cost may not give you the best point value, the best point redemption. Now, that's okay. But same thing as I always tell everyone, it doesn't necessarily matter what the point redemption is. You have to decide what's best for you. I just want to make sure that you have as much information as possible so that you make an educated decision on however you proceed. But especially for this, be sure to check cash prices before you utilize the points just to make sure you're informed. And then we talked about Avianca Lifemiles as far as that sale for buying points, but we have an award sale that's going on. So we have a 35% award discount if you're using points for award flights. You do have to book by July 27th, which is only in a couple of days. But the real nice thing about this is the eligible travel dates are from July 28th of this year all the way to April 20th of next year. Now, these award bookings are for economy class, and you cannot use code share flights, so you must fly Avianca to find these 35% discounts. And they are limited to the flights that I have listed here, which is flying out of Dulles from Washington, D.C. to San Jose, where it would normally be an average of 6,960 miles. And that 35% is going to bring it down to 4,530 on average. Then you have LAX to Guatemala City, where it's going from 8,770 miles down to 5,700 miles. Then you have Dulles again to Bogota at 14,880 miles down to 9,680. You have Miami to Bogota for 10,080 miles going down to about 6,560 miles. And then you have Las Vegas to San Salvador for going from 15,320 miles down to 9,960 miles. And then Dulles to, I believe I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Palmarola in Honduras. And that is going from 16,220 miles down to 10,550 miles. JFK to Pereira, Colombia, I believe that's how it's pronounced, going from 18,140 miles down to 11,800 miles. Then Dulles to Managua, Nicaragua, 19,000 miles down to 12,350. And then lastly, SFO, San Francisco to San Salvador, going from 23,440 miles down to 15,240 miles. So while these eligible flights are a bit limited, if you have any interest or we're looking at anything, in that we have a large window from July through April at this 35%. If you were looking at an economy flight to Central America and the potential positioning works out for you to position yourself to Dulles or to LAX or Miami or Vegas or San Francisco, this may be something to look at. That's a very good discount, but once again, not necessarily something that you're moving heaven and earth for. You just need to make sure if this was something that fits in your time frame with where you were trying to go, it could be a very good discount for you on your points to get them to go further. Then we have the Qatar new Q suites. So this has been coming up for a bit of a time. And so that got announced with some renderings and some pictures of Q Suites Next Gen. Now, these are going to be installed on their new Boeing 777X, which are in a very lengthy certification process. And they have 60 Boeing planes of this type on order. So what are the changes? It is going to include some larger seats for some increased shoulder space. So you have a larger lie flat seat, which means a larger bed. The in-flight entertainment screens are going to be upgraded to 4K OLED screens, which is really nice to see. The doors, which have been manual, are now going to become motorized doors. And then lastly, storage has been an issue with them. And so because this plane has more space, they've been able to increase the storage space. And so they have a couple of drawers that are going to be there. And one will be one that's locked by digital code, similar to what you might see at a hotel. As far as thoughts, I've not had the opportunity to fly Q Suites yet. Hoping that my wife and I can be able to do that in the next year or two, hopefully. But it's easily regarded as one of the top business class seats, and really especially for a player one and player two that want to be sitting together because of how those seats are. It is truly an incremental evolutionary type of changes, not revolutionary. So we haven't done a dramatic change of the Q Suites, and mainly because it's still so highly revered and ranked. So these are some very nice changes from what they were. So that's why I say incremental, not revolutionary. We probably will not be seeing these though until late 2025, maybe early 2026, because of that certification process that they still have to get through. But it's a nice touch of the increase for it. As for me, I've seen some of the screens from the in-flight entertainment, and because of how long that flight is, it's nice to see them going to 4K OLED screens. So, be interested in you all's thoughts on Q suites and if you've ever flown them. So we get to a string of Hyatt, where Hyatt is really doing a lot of things. So let's talk about Hyatt and Standard International. There's basically, as I mentioned here, that Hyatt has been on an absolute acquisition partnership tear for the last few years. In 2018, they got Two Roads Hospitality, which includes Thompson and Alila. 2021 was where they made the massive purchase of Apple Leisure Group, which truly expanded their all-inclusive resorts beyond the Zalara and Ziva product that Hyatt has. Then they ended up getting Dream Hotel Group, which is a lifestyle brand, and then of course the booking platform of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. As far as Standard International hotels, they operate a global network of hotels. The main ones that you normally have heard of is the Standard, but it's also the Bunkhouse and Paris are the ones that are the main ones. They have locations in New York City, Bangkok, London, Miami, and Ibiza, with forthcoming locations in Singapore, Dublin, Lisbon, and they'll have a new brand of a Standard X hotel in Melbourne, Australia. This deal has not happened, is not happening yet, but it is seems like it's on the verge of happening, of them taking over this. And the lifestyle brand type of hotels have been a very hot thing, not just for Hyatt. I believe it's Marriott that has Edition as well, and that's kind of a niche that people are different hotel groups are looking at. So not surprising, but continuously that these partnerships and acquisitions that Hyatt is doing is really trying to fill out their footprint for a brand that was considered having a very small footprint probably about 3-4 years ago. It is starting to really expand in some areas that they don't have that footprint in. Then we have the Park Hyatt Los Cabos. So this was announced all the way back in 2017. It is a 26-acre property within Cabo del Sol, which is a golf resort community that's along 2 miles of beach there in Cabo San Lucas. It will be the same. This Cabo del Sol golf resort community is the same place where they're just opened the Four Seasons at Cabo del Sol. Now these rooms are huge. They have 162 guest rooms that are planned for this, and it's going to be 649 square feet. That's just for the standard room with a 186 square foot patio. And if you're in the suites, you can get up to, you'll be at 900 for a standard suite. Let me say that. It would be 956 square feet with 456 square feet for a patio as well as a plunge pool. Then they'll also have 35 residences. So this is a lot of space for rooms there. It's a significant luxury addition that can be reserved with points because there's not really a lot that is there for the luxury and the point value. Now, this is another place I've not been to, haven't been to Mexico, have not been to Los Cabos. But so per 1 mile at a time, I think they did a very good quick review on what the luxury resorts there and what's the issues with them. So they mentioned the Waldorf Astoria, the award space are very hard to find. The Cape, which is a Thompson hotel, is one of the most reliable spaces. Then you have the Zadoon Los Cabos Ritz-Carlton Reserve. Points requirement is steeper, obviously, if it's a Ritz-Carlton Reserve. And then Solaz Los Cabos, which is a Marriott Luxury Collection. Their thought was that it was essentially there to sell timeshares And then it got closed suddenly in 2021 and it's since reopened. So it looks like a really good spot for Park Hyatt to be there. I don't necessarily know what the point value we're going to look at, but if you're looking at Los Cabos, something to be looking forward to. Then we have the Park Hyatt Johannesburg. Now, the Park Hyatt Johannesburg was, once again, that one was announced back in 2022, and it was to open in 2023, but of course, delays end up happening. It is the Winston Hotel, and it's being renovated and will be rebranded as a Park Hyatt upon completion. Now, reservations are already open, uh, are now being accepted, so you can be able to look at this. It is not the first Park Hyatt, though, in Johannesburg. I read where there was one previously, but in 2007, it was actually rebranded into a Hyatt Regency. So obviously, it didn't meet the level of what Park Hyatt is supposed to be. There's only going to be 31 rooms at this hotel. It's the world's smallest Park Hyatt, of course. Found that very interesting for such a small boutique hotel. It is going to be a category 5. So you're looking at 17 to 23,000 points for a standard room and 29,000 to 35,000 points for a standard suite. The cash price for these standard rooms is approximately $500. It's going to be a restaurant with a dining room and an outdoor terrace, a bar, and an event space for, if you only have 30 rooms, then that event space is only for 60 guests. So if you are looking at, if you're a Hyatt member and you've got some points and you want to look at a really small boutique hotel there in Johannesburg, this may be one for you. And then we'll talk about redeeming Flying Blue miles for El Al. And we talked about El Al a little bit ago. And for people that aren't aware, El Al is Israel's airline. And it is the only airline that is equipped with essentially a missile defense system on all of their planes. They have significant security related to any of their flights, regardless of where it's out of, not just in Israel. And there's a lot of expenses that go into El Al. But we talked about Flying Blue. They've been engaged with agreements that have allowed their miles to be redeemed for Etihad and Oman Air to date. And now we're looking at El Al. You will also be, some of the things to note, though. The award pricing appears to be more by route, not by region. So you're not going to be able to easily kind of pick this apart. You're going to have to just look at the route that you're looking at and seeing what it is, but it won't be indicative necessarily of all flights within the region. The award pricing is by segment. So while Flying Blue allows stopovers, it's almost going to be nullified by the fact that you're doing it because the pricing is by segment. And so keep that in mind as you look at those numbers, that the stopover may not carry as much weight if you a person that does Flying Blue a lot. There will be no surcharges for redemption, so that's good. And they're going to be available on business, premium economy, and economy flights. The award space is going to be very limited in premium cabins, which is not surprising. As far as a couple of pricing, just to give you a thought, US to Israel in economy, 44,000 to 61,000 miles on El Al. Premium economy would be 80,500 to 110,000 miles. And then if you're in business, 77,500 miles to 106,500 miles. No, that's not a typo. Yes, there will be cases where you could find a business class flight that could be lower than the premium economy. Once again, it depends on the route, not the region. So that's why we see that discrepancy. So interesting. I've always been interested in what flying on El Al would be like. That's probably not going to be something for me in a long time, but hopefully if people are looking at potentially going to Israel, this may be an option to be able to do it on points in miles. Then we have the opening of the Alaska Lounge in the SFO Terminal 1. So that's San Francisco. The lounge is open. It's near Gate B6 in the Harvey Milk Terminal 1. It is the second largest Alaska airline lounge at 11,000 square feet, only second to the flagship location in Seattle. It does not have showers, but no Alaska lounge has showers. The lounge is going to be. It's not in addition, because if you've been to SFO, you'll know that there is slash was a lounge in Terminal 2 where Alaska Airlines was based out of. Well, when Alaska Airlines moved to Terminal 1, that's when Alaska decided they needed to build a lounge in Terminal 1. Now, since a little while ago, if you're at SFO in San Francisco, they now have it where you can go between all of the terminals and concourses once you get past security. You don't have to come in and out. So it wasn't necessarily that it had to be done that way, but it was done as far as having basically more convenience involved in this. So for that. And then as far as the features, as far as access, you need to have a paid first class ticket on flights over 2,000 miles. Alaska Lounge and American Admirals Club members would have access. One thing to keep a note on, as we've probably talked about in different cases when it comes to having one world status. So if you're an Emerald or Sapphire member, but you got it through American Advantage and Alaska Mileage Plan, you do not get lounge access when traveling within the United States. And if it's Alaska, that also is US to Canada and US to Mexico. This came up when we were looking at some British Airways getting one world status, as well as another foreign one, where that did allow you to be able to fly within the United States and have access to the lounge. It just cannot be the US based source of where you're getting those one world status from. So 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. The food is going to be rotating schedule with some San Francisco specific options, and their standard pancake machine is there. Not had an opportunity to do that as well. Drinks, standard drinks, wine from the West Coast, barista coffee, and as I mentioned, no showers. So nice addition, large. I'll make sure I have a link for it. It is the pictures of it is so light. It is a really nice looking lounge. So I will make sure to put a link in the comment section for you to be able to experience it in the meantime. And then the Hyatt Under Canvas partnership is one that just was announced today, this afternoon, actually. And I was actually, as a person as we talk about this, I'm actually somewhat excited about this possibility. So I had not heard of Under Canvas before. So World of Hyatt members can earn and redeem points at Under Canvas properties. Under Canvas is considered an upscale glamping experience. And I'm not one that camps. I probably take a shot at glamping, but we'll see how that goes. It is safari-inspired tents and they have complimentary programming with nightly campfires, board games, yoga, as well as kids' activities there. This is going to occur through the Mr. and Mrs. Smith platform. Under Canvas has 13 outdoor resorts, primarily in national parks and other notable outdoor destinations. And I have the 13 listed here as Acadia, Bryce Canyon, Glacier, Grand Canyon, Great Smoky Mountains, which will be Gatlinburg, Lake Powell, which on the Grand Staircase, which is Grand Canyon, Moab, Utah, Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, of course, North Yellowstone, Ulam, Moab, the West Yellowstone, Yosemite, and then Zion for Zion National Park in Utah. This is an interesting look for them to go to this. The closest thing I've seen to it is obviously when we looked at Hilton and Auto Camp doing their thing. But this, when you look at the pictures and start looking at this Under Canvas program, it is a whole different level as far as being out at these national parks and areas with this type of setup. It is, especially the Moab one, is amazingly beautiful. So, as far as what do you get with this? So, the standard things that would normally come with most other Hyatt stays are applicable. You'll get the elite level bonuses based upon if you're discoverist, explorist, or globalist. You'll get elite nights earned. You'll This is going to be eligible for Brand Explorer, and so if you're not too familiar with that, what it does is that if you stay at, I believe it's five, I think it's five. If you stay at five different brands of Hyatt, you get a free night certificate. And so as they add in all of these different ones, it becomes more interesting as you have this now. So that it will also apply. You'll get the 5 points per dollar as a World of Hyatt member. And if you're using credit card for Hyatt, either personal or business, you'll get the 4x per dollar. The only issues that you have to be aware of is the award pricing is dynamic. So we're not locked in at a certain number. But the plus is if you do end up doing for cash, they do appear to have roughly the same price through the Hyatt platform as rather just as you would see under the Under Canvas website. So that's good that we're not seeing any upcharge just by going through the Hyatt portal. So those are the options that you have for Under Canvas. And I say, Mr. Coco, I agree. It is interesting. I am not a camper, but I'm willing to look at being a camper for once you see some of those pictures that are there. And I see John talked about that Under Canvas is interesting. It is. If you ever have looked at, been interested in, I'll keep saying, I guess I'll keep saying glamping, then it is one to take a look at. And I see Fashion Forward, not a camper either, but I give it a try. I agree. I'm right there with you. So I will have a link for that, but really interesting opportunity. But it is live right now for you to at least be able to explore and see what things may look like. So now we have Southwest, which had a big announcement today as far as essentially changing that business model. We talked a couple of weeks ago, probably maybe 3 weeks ago, where there was some leaked information out of some of their focus groups of what they were looking at. And they talked about a lot of different options related to Southwest and some changes in that it wasn't just a focus group that kind of just kicked things around, that there was really some meat on the bones of what they were looking at and what people were able to see. And so now we're finally seeing what this is looking like. So as I mentioned, we're looking at a new business model. Southwest surveys found that 80% of current customers and 86% of potential customers prefer assigned seating. Now that's astonishing of that high of a percentage from your current customers, let alone people that are potential ones. So they will now be going to assigned seating. All seats will be assigned. Premium seating, they don't have those layouts yet, but we believe it's going to be similar to what we talked about, where basically 1/3 of the plane would be considered premium, and it wouldn't be all in one space because the exit rows would be considered premium space because of the additional leg room. As I mentioned, the exact cabin layout is still to be determined. The additional improvements would be looking at faster Wi-Fi, in-seat power, and some larger overhead bins, and more things forthcoming. I think that I am a person that doesn't fly Southwest much, but my home airport is a strong Southwest location to go anywhere in the country. I only fly it to go see my son because it's the only direct flight that gets me there, and I cannot stand it. I pay the extra money for the early bird, and I still could not stand the cattle call, as I call it. So I am excited to hear about this, and I'm curious of how many people um, actually still liked the open seating concept, or are they really looking forward to this type of assigned seating? The other item that I really did not pay attention to or really knew about was that Southwest will begin operating red eyes flights, and that is the first time in their history. I didn't know that they didn't do red eye flights. I had never really looked for one, But I found it astonishing in these times with as many airlines that do red eye flights that Southwest had never done one. And so they've announced their first, this is going to begin in February of 2025. The first 5 routes that have been announced to start February 13th is Las Vegas to Baltimore, Las Vegas to Orlando, LAX to Baltimore, LAX to Nashville, and Phoenix to Baltimore. And as I mentioned, there'll be more flights that'll get phased in over time. As far as my thoughts, excited to hear about this. Makes it much more flight airline I will consider flying more. When I go to Las Vegas, I don't. I Southwest flies directly to Las Vegas where I live. I will not take Southwest for that 4-hour flight now. Normally, I didn't. I would go down about an hour and a half to another city in my state and fly that to Las Vegas. Morning flight to go to Las Vegas, red eye coming back. So I am willing to now look at Southwest once they get to this with the assigned seating and maybe if there's a red eye. But the reasons for this red eye situation I thought was very interesting. So prior to 2017, their reservation system could not accommodate doing red eye flights. And a couple of the reasons why was that the reservation system, it's funny to say that the reservation system required Southwest to do something and not Southwest management. But I'm sure weren't prepared to spend the money on a new reservation system prior to that. But it required all flights to land by 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time so the system could switch over to the next day. And then, of course, there was also, not of course, but there was also the issue where they would not allow connecting itineraries involving potential red eyes on that reservation system. Now, when 2017 happened, that is when they upgraded or went to the Amadeus reservation system, and it was implemented, which gave them the capability of doing it. But the problem then was the contracts for the pilots and the attendants did not mention anything about red eyes. So they could not do anything without doing a new contract negotiation, which they did not do. So that all played itself out this year. So the new contracts that were for the pilots in January included that language, and the contract for the flight attendants in April addressed that issue. So it'll be very interesting to see how much they do of red eye flights. And because of that, and but more importantly, I think of the assigned seating, when you have percentages of 80 and 86%, I think you're going to see a lot more people being willing to fly Southwest. And while they had put out some of their financial numbers, and it wasn't the most ideal, but we didn't expect it to be based upon some information from the last quarter, this could be the plan that really kind of vaults them to strong stability. And think about how much they were losing with planes being grounded after 2 a.m. all around the country. So I think this could be a very interesting thing, and it's one I'm definitely looking forward to. I see Fashion Forward talking about red eye flights coming back from Vegas are wildly popular. This is a good move for them. Completely agree. I'm not the most fond of doing the flight, but this one, to be able to go back to my home airport, it would definitely give me some strong consideration to doing it. So that's the new Southwest that we're looking at. We don't know when this is going to be implemented, though, especially the assigned seating. That may be something that we're still a few months away, but they figure they've got to change everything up and how far they've gone out with their with the reservations that people have that don't have reserved seating. How do they get that integrated when people have been booking flights months and months ahead? So we don't have the specifics of how they're going to roll that out specifically. So keep an eye out for that with any interest in Southwest. The American Express Gold Card changes. What you need to know. Of course, I think everybody knows that the new American Express Gold Card version is out and the pricing has changed. But let's take a look at it because there may be some things to look at. So the annual fee has now increased from $250 to $325. It is effective immediately for any of the new card members. Now, I will say that I woke up this morning and saw that Anthony Venture was doing a live stream at 2 in the morning when I woke up, and I jumped on, and that the new information was there for a period of time. I'm not saying how long it was, where it showed all the features, but still had the $250 annual fee. Now, I can't say that if you went through getting the card that it didn't address the problem, but at least for what it showed on the website for a period of time, it showed the additional benefits, but it kept that same $250 amount for a period of time, which was interesting. And then if you are a current cardholder, renewals, that will apply for any renewals after going from October 1st of 2024. There's a white gold card option. I have to admit, I did do that. I currently have the American Express Gold Card. If you do have that and you have an interest in it, it is a very easy switch. All you need to go to is your account services, either on your app or on your desktop website, and you have the option to be able to change to rose gold as well as this new white gold card option, and I went in, reserved it, or got it, and I'll get mine August the 2nd. So there's talk that it's a limited availability. I haven't seen anything that's put that into numbers to say that you can or when they're going to run out or something. I'm sure that there'll be plenty of them for most people. So, but I wanted to throw that out. Now, as far as the changes, we have a $7 monthly Dunkin' Donuts credit. You do have to enroll in it. So on my gold card benefits page, it shows me those options now. You do have to enroll. It's a couple of clicks to get into it. Then you have the $100 semi-annual Resi credit, so $50 every 6 months, July through December and January through June. You do have to enroll in that as well. So make sure if you have the card or are going to be getting the card that you do make sure to enroll. The 4X on restaurants now has a $50,000 annual cap. I'm sure that affects some people that are maybe big time consultants or business people or owners. That's a lot of money. So I don't think it impacts a large majority of us as far as that. So I don't view that as a negative. There is 2X prepaid hotels and other eligible purchases through the amextravel.com. That is something that is showing up there. And then as far as the $10 dining credit, this is not Uber. This is the one that basically has Cheesecake Factory, it has Grubhub, it has wine.com, it had Milk Bar and Shake Shack. Those two are now removed. And now you have Five Guys. And that was a funny kind of bouncing back and forth on Anthony's live stream. He had never been to Five Guys, and I've been there, haven't been there in a while. But if you have not had Five Guys and you have one locally, two things I'm going to just throw out to keep in mind if you haven't been there. Number one, the burgers are very good, but the prices have gotten so high over there. Don't be afraid to get the smallest regular cheeseburger. It still has some substance to it. But the main thing is on the French fries. Just get the smallest French fry. What they do is they'll fill the bag, the packet, I'll call it, that they put the fries in, and then what they'll do is they take a scoop from a metal container and dump more fries in there, which is almost equal to the small one. So they're not cheap. You don't need to buy a medium or a large size. You can get by with standard size. So that's something to keep in mind if you haven't been to Five Guys before. As far as some thoughts, well, number one, we do have an increased welcome bonus now if you are looking at getting the American Express Gold Card. Through November 16th, you're going to get 90,000 points, which is kind of what we've seen for the American Express Gold Card in a lot of cases. If you bounce around a little bit, for $6,000 worth of spend in the first 6 months, which is the normal spend, they'll also throw in 20% back cash back in a statement credit rather On restaurants for the first 6 months, it does go up to $100. It's in credits. It's not the biggest number, but I guess if you're already looking at getting an American Express Gold card, maybe it's an option for you. Let's move further. So you have a $75 annual fee increase, but you have the potential for $184 in new credits. And I get that from 12 months of $7 for the Dunkin' Donuts at $84, and then the $100 in the Resi credits. The questions you need to ask yourself if you're going to consider the American Express Gold Card, and I, of course, did a video on that not too long ago when I was basically saying where I viewed it as a grocery card. But the things you need to look at is one, are you going to be a regular user of the Dunkin' Donuts to use that credit for $7 per month? It's a small number, but that accumulates to $84, and that's not chump change when you have a $75 increase. So that's something you have to be aware of. Number two, you have to decide if you aren't already a Resi fan or have the ability or have options of Resi with other Amex credit cards. Are you going to be one? And you have to be sure to go on resi.com and see what restaurants that fall under Resi that are near you. In my case, I think there's about 7 restaurants. None of the 7 I've ever been to. None of them was really appealed to me. And I have Resi credit on my Delta card. And so I haven't used that yet. But I spent a little more time looking at it today and found some type of live entertainment bar/restaurant that I'm going to give a try to use this Resi credit. I think that we did come out good if you are having the gold card, that it is semi-annual and not this monthly pieces that we normally get from American Express. You can also, in some cases, if the restaurant that you're looking at that's under Resi sells gift cards, you could get a gift card during that 6-month period for the $50 and then combine it with the next 6 months to put together a $100 or $150 dinner where it's fully paid for. Once again, if the restaurant sells the gift cards, they will normally come up under Resi and qualify. And then lastly, this Five Guys gets you to use that dining credit if you didn't see something there before. For me, for the $10 for me, I ended up using it either at Shake Shack, because that was enough to basically get a burger and a fry and be good to go, or I used it on Grubhub and I picked it up because I definitely don't want to pay delivery expenses and tips for that $10 credit. So if you see where you're looking at the Amex Gold and you're looking at getting it, look at these features in these questions as it relates to the increase. And then, of course, for the original case where it's at $250 and you've got $120 in credit from Uber and then $120 dining credit, once again, are you going to use it and make sure that you maximize these credits so that that annual fee and that effective fee might get down to zero if you can do it right. So I want to make sure to put those out for you. And I see that we've got, I think Amex offers a fine product and ecosystem, but I'd rather have 3x on groceries, restaurants on Chase than 4x on Amex. And I think that's an interesting aspect. I bounce around between that, mainly because I'm a person that loves flying Delta, and so those Amex points do help on that. But I do make sure that I split some time with the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and I use the 3x on the online groceries, mainly because I normally, as much as I can, end up doing the grocery shopping online for them to pick up, for me to pick up or have delivered. And so I agree with you on that. I have to bounce around depending upon what the plan is for the year, and it sounds similar for what you've got going on. So completely agree. And I see John says the new Amex credits are easy for me, and the MR points are the best for my needs. Once again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that's exactly right. It's all about what each of us want to be able to accomplish. And there are so many ways to make this work for you personally. I had a question on the video that I did related to the Amex Gold and the Capital Saver One, and the person mentioned that he had believed that the 5X that was on a credit union, it was a federal credit union credit card where you got 5% back, was best. And the reality is, if you're a cash back person, it was a very good deal. There was no cap. It was 5% on it. The only issue was that you have to qualify. You had to be a person that was a member of one of 1,800 organizations that tied with this federal credit union, or you had to be connected, I'll say, with a current member, almost kind of like Navy Federal kind of thing, and then or a government worker or a government contractor. So that's the beauty. That's what works for that person, and I completely understand it. And that's why these points and miles thing, as long as just do it, whatever's going to work for you, just make sure to do it. And Fashion Forward said, I personally dine out a lot. If Capital One gets rid of Uber and Uber Eats multipliers altogether come November, I may switch to Amex Gold, even with the annual fee. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Capital One does with that. I'm hoping that we're going to see an extension of it. It is such a great percentage to be able to get with them on that. But I would definitely understand now looking at the Amex Gold, even with the annual fee, because once again, if you can make it work for you, then you may have an annual fee that might be zero or potentially even less than zero. Let's see. And yep, love my Delta. Completely agree with you, John. So let's see, so the Bilt card of tuition. It's a very interesting item. And I try to put myself in the thought of what I thought Bilt was when it was talked about a while back ago. So there is a card that currently has a wait list. Not many. It's only about, I think it's about 5,000 people on the wait list. So they are talking about on this credit card, it would have no processing fee for payments to colleges, community colleges, grad schools, and private K through 12 tuition. It would have no annual fee. There would be no transaction fees, like I mentioned, no processing fees. It would work with every school that falls in that category. You would also get 3x on dining, 2x on groceries, and then 1x on tuition and everything else. The points, there is 100,000 point cap on tuition. Now, the points aren't like Bilt, though, at least as proposed. I should keep stressing as proposed. It isn't where Bilt has like those transfer partners. These seem to be vendors that are part of a group where you would basically be looking at statement credits to kind of eliminate those expenses. So, and I'll make sure to have a link for this. There appears to be 42 merchants, and it's mainly restaurants and department stores. The only travel related ones that I saw was Airbnb, Alaska, and Delta. And once again, we're not talking about transferring of points. We're talking about incurring a charge from that vendor and then being able to use the points to erase it, essentially. So I thought all that is very interesting. What I also found very interesting is the tuition payments don't have to be just for you. It could be for anyone that you choose to pay for, your child, your spouse, a friend, or whatever. There was no restriction to who you use this card for. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought that could really open up some opportunities for people. Similar to Bilt, you have the payment by check, and this is the Rise credit card. Now, there is a Rise loan program. I don't think it has anything to do with them, but as I'll get to that in a minute. But you have the same kind of thing where they have where you can get payments either through the credit card, check via credit or the Rise Safeguard, which basically pays from your account versus your credit card, just like we see with Bilt. And like I said, the balances can be pulled directly from your checking or savings account. The ACH payments, similar to Bilt, you'll get an account number and a routing number that you can provide to vendors to be able to charge if they don't take credit cards. And then the maximum points earned via tuition is 100,000 points or points. So what does this look like? Well, so the wait list basically asks you just provide your name and your email address, but they do ask a couple of questions of what kind of tuition would you use this for, and is it for you or for someone else? Clearly trying to gather information. And like I mentioned, there's 5,500, give or take, people on the wait list currently. We don't know, we have no information of any bank that's tied to this. And more than likely, this is part of a venture capital process where they want to show their proof of concept that there is a demand for this, that they're able to show to potential backers what this would look like, what kind of money would be involved, what kind of categories would be involved. I think it's a long way out, but there's clearly interest in this. So I don't have a dog in the fight anymore. I don't have school anymore, and my son is beyond school at this point. But if you are interested, it's maybe something to put on the wait list. I don't think there's anything that is happening in moments or anything like that. And obviously, with no bank listed yet, it's going to be a while off. I don't view it as a scam. I just view it as a early process to try to secure venture capital funding. So I thought it was interesting. I think that there's going to be a place for a card like this. And I think Bilt has shown how that can work, even with the issues we talked about a few weeks ago about what Wells Fargo is losing in the partnership. But I think there is a lot there, and obviously a lot of money to be made. So I will make sure to have a link for that in the comments. I really appreciate everybody being on the show tonight and being here, and your contributions and your thoughts. It's always good to hear what you're providing as far as your thoughts and sharing. And I know it helps a lot of people out, and I want to thank you so much for that. And I look forward to bringing this to you next week. I will actually have the first podcast of this show up probably this weekend. So if you have people that are interested in listening only for the podcast versus the video here on YouTube, that may be a good option. I'll make sure to put information out for that. So please, if you've got people that might be interested, please have them take a look at it and see if it's something that they might have an interest in. Thank you so much for everybody being here, and everybody take care and have a great day.